Alright, bookworms. Get ready, because today we are jumping into Vaclav Smil's How the World Really Works, a scientist's guide to our past, present and future. Smil is basically handing us the instruction manual for civilization. He's not about hype or doomsday predictions, but about understanding the fundamental realities that shape our world. Smil kicks off by talking about energy, the universal currency as he calls it. He argues that understanding energy, especially our dependence on fossil fuels and electricity, is key to understanding modern life. For a long time, humans relied solely on their own muscle or that of animals for energy, with some help from water wheels and windmills. But the discovery and harnessing of fossil fuels, particularly coal, changed everything. It led to unprecedented advancements, but also created our current environmental challenges. Smil stresses that our understanding of energy must be based on physics. A common mistake is confusing energy with power. Energy is a quantity, while power is the rate at which energy is used. Another fundamental concept is energy density, which has implications for portability. Liquid fuels, like kerosene and diesel, have high energy densities, making them ideal for transportation. That's why it's so hard to replace them with something like batteries, which have a much lower energy density. Smil acknowledges the widespread desire to move away from fossil fuels, but cautions against unrealistic expectations. He points out that complete decarbonization by 2050 is only conceivable with either unthinkable global economic retreat or extraordinarily rapid transformations relying on near miraculous technical advances. He considers both highly unlikely. He highlights the challenges of transitioning to renewable energy sources, particularly the intermittent nature of solar and wind power. Large-scale storage solutions or massive grid infrastructure are needed to make these sources reliable. Next, Smil tackles food production and emphasizes that modern agriculture is heavily reliant on fossil fuels. This dependence is both direct, in the form of fuels for machinery, and indirect, in the form of fertilizers and agrochemicals. He illustrates this point by comparing wheat production in the past and present. In the early 1800s, it took about 150 hours of human labor to produce 1 hectare of wheat. Today it takes only 2 hours, thanks to mechanization and fossil fuel inputs. Smil uses the examples of bread, chicken, and tomatoes to demonstrate the energy costs embedded in common foods. He calculates the diesel fuel equivalent required to produce these items, revealing the extent of our reliance on fossil fuels for even the most basic foodstuffs. He points out that fertilizers, especially nitrogen fertilizers, are a major energy input in modern agriculture. The synthesis of ammonia, a key ingredient in nitrogen fertilizers, is heavily dependent on natural gas. Smil questions the feasibility of a complete return to organic farming, noting that it would require a significant reduction in the global population or a major shift in diets. He explains that while organic waste recycling is desirable, the quantity of recyclable materials is too small to provide the nitrogen needed for current crop yields. While Smil acknowledges the environmental problems associated with modern agriculture, he argues that transitioning away from fossil fuels in food production will be a long and complex process. Moving on from energy and food, Smil examines the material foundations of modern civilization, which he defines as the 4 pillars: ammonia, steel, concrete, and plastics. He emphasizes that these materials are essential for sustaining our current way of life. He stresses that the production of these materials is highly energy-intensive and dependent on fossil fuels. Despite claims of dematerialization, the demand for these materials continues to rise, especially in developing countries. Smil details the properties and uses of each of the 4 materials. Ammonia is essential for fertilizer production. Steel provides a unique combination of malleability and strength for construction and manufacturing. Concrete is the most massively deployed construction material. Plastics offer versatility and lightweight for various applications. He explains that while recycling can help reduce the demand for primary materials, it cannot completely replace it. He also notes that there are no readily deployable alternatives to the existing processes for producing these materials without relying on fossil fuels. Switching gears, Smil discusses globalization, which he defines as the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and populations. Contrary to popular belief, globalization is not a new phenomenon. Smil traces its origins back to ancient trade routes and the age of exploration. However, he emphasizes that technological advancements, particularly in transportation and communication, have driven successive waves of globalization. He identifies key innovations that have enabled globalization, including sailing ships, steam engines, diesel engines, jetliners, and microchips. These innovations have increased the speed, capacity, and reliability of transportation and communication, facilitating greater interconnectedness. Smil cautions against the assumption that globalization is an inevitable process. He points to historical periods of deglobalization and the recent rise of nationalism as evidence that the trend can be reversed. He also notes that the benefits of globalization have not been evenly distributed. The loss of manufacturing jobs in developed countries and the exploitation of labor in developing countries have fueled discontent and opposition to globalization. Turning to the topic of risk, Smil argues that modern societies have succeeded in reducing many previously mortal or crippling risks. However, he emphasizes that many perils will always be with us, and we often fail to make proper risk assessments. He contrasts voluntary and involuntary risks, noting that people are often more willing to accept risks they perceive as being under their control. He also discusses the role of dread and emotional reactions in shaping risk perceptions. Smil provides a framework for judging the risks we face, comparing the relative risks of various activities and exposures. He uses mortality statistics to quantify and compare different causes of death. He also discusses the importance of diet and lifestyle in managing health risks. He suggests that following a balanced diet, with moderate meat consumption and plenty of fruits and vegetables, is a good way to promote longevity. Smil stresses that the key existential question of whether humanity can realize its aspirations within the safe boundaries of our biosphere has no easy answers. He examines how unfolding environmental changes might affect our three existential necessities: oxygen, water, and food. He notes that while oxygen levels are not currently threatened, water scarcity and food security are major concerns. Smil acknowledges that global warming is a real phenomenon but cautions against alarmist predictions. He explains that the fundamentals of global warming have been understood for over 150 years. He emphasizes the importance of understanding the facts about climate change, rather than relying on extreme views or wishful thinking. He stresses that complete decarbonization of the global economy by 2050 is only conceivable at the cost of unthinkable global economic retreat, or as a result of extraordinarily rapid transformations relying on near miraculous technical advances. Finally, Smil addresses the future, specifically the opposing propensities to embrace catastrophism and techno-optimism. He rejects both of these positions, arguing that neither doctrine accurately reflects the complexities of the world. He cautions against relying on overly simplistic models or narratives. He argues that a more measured and agnostic perspective is needed to understand the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. He uses the COVID-19 pandemic as a case study to illustrate the limits of our ability to predict and control complex events. He also notes the importance of having a set of priorities and basic measures for dealing with global challenges. Smil emphasizes that progress is not always linear, and that setbacks and failures are inevitable. He argues that a realistic grasp of our past, present, and uncertain future is the best foundation for approaching the challenges ahead. In the end, the book advocates for moving away from extreme views and embracing a more rational and pragmatic approach to understanding the world. He advocates for rational, matter-of-fact approach to help readers understand how the world really works, and what our chances are of seeing it offer better prospects to the coming generations. The main takeaway of the book is that the world is a complex place with no easy solutions, but that with a solid understanding of the fundamental realities, we can make informed decisions and work toward a better future. Some heuristics from Smil's How the World Really Works are: energy is the universal currency. Always consider the energy implications of any activity or technology. Materials matter. Don't be fooled by claims of dematerialization. We still rely heavily on key materials like steel, cement, and plastics. Globalization isn't new or inevitable. Be aware of the historical context and potential for reversals. Risk assessment requires perspective. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. Compare risks using data and consider both voluntary and involuntary exposures. Complexity demands humility. Avoid simple solutions and recognize the limits of our ability to predict and control the future. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.